Hello everyone and welcome back to our course. In this lecture, we're going to learn how we can navigate throughout an HTML page. Alright, so let's add a new code cell and we will get started. Okay, so I am going to have to grab our initial soup instance first. So let me just change this to soup5 and rerun all of my cells just so that I have access to soup one more time. All right, so then I can print out the value of soup just to verify that we have our website back. Okay, awesome. And what if we want to navigate throughout the contents of this page? For example, what if we wanted to get all of the contents of the body? Well, let's grab our soup instance and let's print out soup.body. If we run this code, we get that whole body tag. And we can actually get the contents of the body tag by printing out soup.body.contents. And if I run this cell, this time I get an array of all of the contents in the body. For example, I can get the first element just by accessing index 0, and I can get the next element by accessing index 1. Let me save the results here in body. So I'm going to save soup.body as body. Then I'm going to print out body.contents at the 0th index. If I run this cell, I just see an empty string, a space, and that's because the first element is just a line break. If I get the second element, then I get heading 1. So do take note that if you ever have a line break, even in your HTML, so if I scroll all the way back up, if you have just a line break, then that is also going to be considered as an element. So if you have like a space, so do take note of that. Okay, and next, we're now able to get all of the contents of a tag. We can also get children other than contents. For example, I'm going to loop through for every child in body.children. I'm going to print out the child. Then if I run this cell, that gives me now all of the elements in children. So it's different from contents. Contents will include even line breaks, but children only returns HTML tags. So it's a bit of a cleaner way. We can also, instead of children, we can get descendants. So if I run this cell now, very similar, but we have now descendants instead of children. That's how we navigate down with either children or descendants. But we can also navigate up with parents or parent, for example. Let's loop through for every parent in one of our elements, parents. Let's get one of the anchor tags. For example, earlier we have found this element by its ID, Wall Street Coder. Let's do the same. Let's grab the anchor tag of Wall Street Coder and print out all of its parents. So I'm going to go through every parent in soup.find Wall Street Coder and grab its parents. And I'm going to print out the parent. Then if I run this code cell, look at that. I get all of the parents of that one anchor tag. And note that that is going up instead of going down. So children goes down your document and parent goes up. You can also go sideways. For example, I can just copy this loop, make a new code cell, and this time I'm going to go for every sibling. And I'm going to print out the sibling. So I'm going to find the same element, but this time instead of parents, I'm going to use next sibling. And then I'll run this code cell. And okay. So we can see here, we don't get anything, but I'm just going to remove the loop. So we don't actually need a loop because next sibling, it's only going to return one element. Okay, then I'll run this code cell and now I'll see my result. It's just a line break. Because the next thing after Wall Street Coder, that was just a break. We can also get previous sibling, and if I run this cell, also a break, because the two surrounding them were breaks. Okay, and that is how we can get children, parents, descendants, and also siblings of our various elements. You can also navigate by classes and IDs, and we have seen that before. We've used get before, as well as just accessing at a certain key. There's also a function select. So for example, you could call soup.select, and you can pass in here a CSS selector. For example, I could pass in my title, which is a class, and if I run this, I'm going to get my array of all the elements with the class title. I could also do an ID like hello coding, and that is going to return for me an empty array here because it's not a class. If I do course, again, I get an empty array. So I want to pass in here the name of a tag. If I want to do, for example, a class, then I have to do dot followed by the class name description, because that is how you can access classes with CSS queries. So tags are just with the name of the tag, but a class has to be dot followed by the class name. If you've ever worked with CSS, then you'll know that. That's how you can get CSS selectors. If you want to get an element by an ID, you can use a hashtag, and you can get an element by its ID like that. That's a CSS selector for how to get elements by ID. So you can use this select function if you want to use CSS selectors. So if you're familiar with CSS, then you can use the select function here to grab elements. So as you can see, there are many different ways to get elements from a document. All right, that is how we can navigate throughout the contents of our HTML page. Join me in the next lecture where we will learn how we can filter our tags.